You just turned 85. Yeah. You don't even look close to it. I love you. How do you feel? 50, yeah. Well, she wrote a book at one point and she said the two of you actually were dating at one point. Did that last a long time or was that just sort of brief? And well, it lasted probably longer than it should 'cause I was married at the time. I learned that we are capable of loving more than one person at the same time. That statement from Smokey Robinson was not just a confession but the end of half a lifetime of secrets. So she called me and told me I had to be there. You know, she's my baby. I've known her since she was probably 8 years old. Really? Yeah. He looked back on the years of passion, the overlapping relationships between fame and loneliness. The man never stopped loving even when he paid the price with both his family and reputation. Those late confessions are shaking the entertainment world. And in this video, the entire truth will be revealed. In 1940, in the poor North End neighborhood of Detroit, a boy named William Robinson Jr. was born. He would later become Smokey Robinson, the soul of American music. His father was African American, his mother of mixed French descent. In Smokey's veins ran traces of Nigerian, Scandinavian, Portuguese, and Cherokee heritage. When he was 3, his parents separated. By the age of 10, he had lost his mother. His life was tied to his sister Geraldine and her husband in a house with 12 people. It was there that his love for music began to form. The nickname Smokey had followed him since he was 3 years old. In an interview, Smokey said, "My Uncle Claude was my favorite uncle. He used to take me to see cowboy movies all the time. He got a cowboy name for me, which was Smokey Joe. My Uncle Claude, who was also my godfather. When I was about 3 and 4 years old, he used to take me to see cowboy movies. So, he had a cowboy name for me, Smokey Joe." The line sounds simple, but carries the origin of the stage name that would follow him for life. That uncle not only gave him a name but also a sense of bravery like the cowboys of the West they used to watch together. While studying at Northern High School, Smokey was known as a student gifted in both sports and the arts. But music was his strongest anchor. In 1955, along with 2 friends, Ronald White and Pete Moore, he formed the doo-wop group 5 Chimes. Some friends of mine, some buddies of mine, we formed this group and we called ourselves the 5 Chimes. Went to junior high, we changed our name to the Matadors. 2 years later, the group changed its name to Matadors, adding Bobby Rogers and Claudette Rogers, who would later become Smokey's wife. By 1958, guitarist Marv Tarpan joined, and they officially took the name The Miracles, a name that would later become the first symbol of Motown Records. In August 1957, during a failed audition at Brunswick Records, the group happened to meet Berry Gordy, who would later found Motown Records. Smokey carried with him a notebook containing more than 100 songs he had written since high school. That notebook caught Gord's attention. He saw in the young man a rare talent, one who could sing, write, and understand musical structure. Gordy helped the group record Got a Job, an answer song to the hit Get a Job by the Silhouettes. I Got a Job. That was the beginning of a relationship between the two men that would last for more than 6 decades. In 1959, the Miracles signed with Tamla Records, the predecessor of Motown. That same year, Smokey and Claudette married. Their life revolved around tours, a small recording studio in Detroit, and the belief that they were doing something different. In 1960, the song Shop Around was born. A simple recording with enormous appeal. Within weeks, it climbed to #1 on the R&B chart, becoming Motown's first major hit, and opening the door for the small black-owned label to become an American cultural icon. From a boy who loved cowboy movies, Smokey Robinson became the architect of Motown music. But that path was not made of light alone. Behind every hit were life and death decisions for the label and for himself. A man who would soon have to choose between fame and his true self. Turning points of destiny. From the mid-1960s, Smokey Robinson stepped beyond the image of a young singer to become the man who shaped the sound of an entire empire. Inside the small recording rooms of Hitsville, USA, he not only wrote songs, but also built the spiritual framework of Motown, where every song had to have a soul, a story, and a simplicity that touched the heart. In the cramped space on West Grand Boulevard, Smokey worked with the Miracles, testing sound, refining lyrics, and building arrangements by tapping rhythms on wooden chairs. By 1970, The Tears of a Clown had taken the group to #1 nationwide, affirming Smokey's irreplaceable place in Motown's history. He did not stop with his own group. He was also the creative force behind countless hits for other artists. My Girl for the Temptations, Two Lovers for Mary Wells, Ain't That Peculiar for Marvin Gaye, and Floyd Joy for the Supremes. All were written by him. The hallmark of Smokey's songwriting lay in his lyrics, light, refined, easy to sing, full of depth. Motown became a phenomenon, and Smokey was the man responsible for its backstage success. As Berry Gordy expanded the label, he entrusted Smokey with a crucial role managing A&R scouting and training new artists. Smokey was appointed vice president of Motown in 1969. In the mid-1960s, when the songwriting trio Holland Doyer Holland, the label's creative core, left Motown over contract disputes, Smokey was the one Gordy trusted to maintain production quality. The pressure was immense. Motown was no longer just a record label, but a cultural symbol of Black America. Smokey worked almost around the clock to ensure each recording retained the Detroit sound. Raw harmonies, crisp drums, and genuine vocals. Between 1967 and 1969 came the moment when he had to choose between music and family. Smokey had become the father of 2 young children. The Miracles' touring schedule grew heavier. Each year he spent more than 200 days away from home recording and performing. When offered the vice presidential post, he planned to retire to be with Claudette and their children. But The Tears of a Clown unexpectedly became a global hit, forcing him to stay 2 more years to lead the group's farewell tour. By late 1971, Smokey gradually withdrew from the Miracles. His final performance with the group took place in Washington, D.C., closing 13 years of partnership. Standing backstage that night, he made no long speech. He simply told his bandmates, "It's time." As the stage lights dimmed, Smokey began to face what every great career leaves behind: emptiness. In that silence, he wrote the beginning of a new era for R&B, the private life behind fame. In 1973, he released his first solo album Smokey, which included the song Sweet Harmony, a gentle tribute to the members of the Miracles. The album did not make a major breakthrough, but it marked an important milestone. Smokey was ready to separate from the group and find his own voice. 2 years later, he returned to the studio. This time, free from label pressure or touring schedules, with only music and unspoken thoughts to guide him. The result was A Quiet Storm, one of the most influential works in modern R&B. The recording was simple, unpretentious, carried an unusual rhythm, deep, smooth, and continuous like breathing. DJ Melvin Lindsey would later use the title Quiet Storm to name a new radio R&B format, a genre forever associated with Smokey for decades. In that album, songs such as Baby That's Back at You, The Agony and the Ecstasy, and Quiet Storm itself reflected his shift in musical thinking. No longer following the Motown formula of bright melodies and fast tempos, Smokey chose to tell stories through slower rhythms, allowing listeners to hear the silence within each line. He wrote with the voice of a grown man, seasoned and introspective, speaking of love, pain, and inner conflict. The Agony and the Ecstasy was the clearest example of song both sweet and aching, written while he struggled to balance marriage, career, and personal emotion. Smokey's private life during this period was filled with turmoil. He and Claudette, the life partner who had walked with him through Motown's early days, separated in 1974. Their marriage, once considered a model in the American music scene, gradually fractured under the weight of endless tours and emotional distance. Though they maintained mutual respect, they lived apart for nearly a decade before officially divorcing in 1986. During that time, Smokey had a son, Trey, in 1984, the result of an extramarital relationship. Guilt, affection, and loss intertwined, becoming the raw material for the introspective songs he wrote in those years. Amid those upheavals, Diana Ross, the childhood friend who had grown up with him in Detroit's North End, reappeared in his life. The two had known each other since 1954, when young Ross was just 8 years old. They grew up with music, witnessing Motown's birth together. By the 1970s, when both had become icons, they worked on several projects and a private relationship began. In an interview with The Guardian, Smokey admitted, "I was married at the time. We were working together and it just happened." That relationship, he said, lasted about a year and ended when Diana Ross chose to stop it. In an interview with People in 2023, Smokey shared, "After we'd been seeing each other for a while, Diana said to me she couldn't do that because she knew Claudette and she knew I still loved my wife. And I did. I loved my wife very much." It was not an excuse, but a simple acknowledgement from a man who had lived truthfully with his feelings, even knowing it brought him pain. When asked years later what he had learned from that story, Smokey answered briefly, "I learned that we are capable of loving more than one person at the same time." That statement is considered one of the most honest things he has ever said, both a confession and a human reflection on the emotional contradictions a person can carry for life. At that point, music became his only refuge. His next albums, Warm Thoughts and Being With You, carried the same spirit, simple, slow, and sincere. Being With You reached number 2 on the Billboard chart, proving that audiences still found themselves in the words of Smokey Robinson. After those aching melodies, Smokey Robinson entered a new era, one of recognition, where his name and the Motown legacy he helped build were forever etched into history. Rebirth and legacy followed. In 1983, Smokey received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a milestone marking his journey from Detroit's poor North End to the cultural heart of Los Angeles. 4 years later, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 1988, he won a Grammy Award for Just to See Her, a gentle ballad that revealed the maturity of his voice and emotions. In 1989, he entered the Songwriters Hall of Fame, honored as one of the most influential songwriters of the century. From that point on, Smokey was remembered not just as the voice of the Miracles, but as the man who defined the romantic R&B songwriting style of America. National cultural institutions began to recognize him as a shared treasure. In 1993, he received the National Medal of Arts, the highest artistic honor in the United States, presented by the president himself. By 2006, Smokey was celebrated at the Kennedy Center Honors alongside legends like Dolly Parton and Andrew Lloyd Webber. During the ceremony, he gave a brief but powerful speech: "Success is not just about the music, it's about the legacy you leave." That sentence would later be quoted repeatedly, seen as his personal declaration of what success truly means. Amid those honors, Smokey never stopped working. Over the next 2 decades, he released a series of albums: Love Smokey, Intimate, Timeless Love, and Time Flies When You're Having Fun. Each album reflected his unbroken creative spirit, blending soul, jazz, and pop into a mature, elegant sound. In 2002, Smokey married Frances Gladney, who remains his partner to this day. They met while participating in a community project in Los Angeles. Frances, a designer, is said by friends to have helped Smokey find peace after years of constant movement. Their marriage has been quiet but enduring, something Smokey once described in an interview as the peace I needed after the storm. Beyond music, Smokey devoted much of his time to social causes. He worked as a mentor for Motown Alumni Association programs, supporting young artists and encouraging new generations to respect the craft of lyricism. His talks often focused on writing music with real emotion rather than formula. He also became a familiar presence at charity events, from cancer research fundraisers to school music initiatives. The respect for him extended far beyond the realm of music. Bob Dylan, one of America's greatest lyricists, once said that Smokey was America's greatest living poet. The compliment was often quoted because it came from someone known for rarely praising others publicly. It was proof of Smokey's influence, a man who turned everyday language into words that could move hearts. When many thought his journey had ended, Smokey Robinson began a new chapter. Now past 80, he remains clear-minded, still writing, still confronting the truths few dare to mention. From glory to controversy, from a dazzling past to a complex present, his journey continues. And in old age, he finally revealed what he had kept hidden for more than half a century. The next chapter unfolded in a new decade. In 2014, he released Smokey and Friends, an album featuring duets with Elton John, Linda Ronstadt, and James Taylor. The record carried a warm, gentle tone, like a conversation among generations of artists who understood one another through music. Nearly a decade later, Smokey made a surprising return with GASMs, an album that caught critics' attention for its frank discussion of passion and age. In interviews, he affirmed that music has no age limit. Human emotions, whether at 20 or 80, always deserve expression. GASM stood as proof of that spirit. A musician unafraid to be honest with his creative instincts, unbothered by the passage of time. In April 2025, he released a new album, What the World Needs Now, a project filled with hope. In a conversation with CBS News, Smokey said, "I want people to be inspired. I hope that's my legacy." The simple line reflected his ultimate goal to leave inspiration behind, not just music. That same year, he launched the Legacy Tour, marking the 50th anniversary of A Quiet Storm opening in Glasgow on July 3. On stage, his voice retained its warmth and control even after 8 decades in music. At every stop, audiences stood to sing along, just as they had done since the 1960s. The image of Smokey Robinson holding a microphone amid prolonged applause was proof of a rare endurance belonging to an artist who had lived through every era of popular music. In a recent interview, when asked about Diana Ross, he smiled softly. "Haha. I've known Diana Ross since she was 8 years old, man. She's precious to me. She's my longest living friend." The statement captured a friendship spanning more than 70 years from 2 children in Detroit to 2 legends of American soul. But 2025 also brought turbulence. In May, 4 former employees filed a lawsuit against Smokey and his wife Frances Gladney in Los Angeles Superior Court, alleging sexual assault and a toxic work environment demanding over $50 million in damages. He denied all accusations, calling them fabricated in support of their extortionate scheme, and counter-sued for $500 million for defamation and elder abuse. The criminal investigation by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department remains ongoing. Amid the controversy, Smokey continued to perform. He appeared at American Music Honors alongside Bruce Springsteen, John Fogerty, and Emmylou Harris, standing before thousands with calm composure. Those who have followed him for years noted that no matter the scandal, Smokey Robinson always chose the stage where music gave him control over everything. That endurance was not just physical but spiritual. After more than 6 decades, Smokey still kept a steady rhythm of work. Still sang with the same simple joy he once had in Detroit. Those who worked with him said he was never late, always rehearsed thoroughly, and never treated a performance lightly, no matter its size. To audiences, Smokey Robinson is a symbol of consistency. To colleagues, he is a quiet mentor, a model of enduring dedication, and to American popular music, he stands as a witness to an era when songs about love, loyalty, and longing could transcend every cultural boundary. Now, as many of his contemporaries have passed or retired, Smokey remains standing. He said at a recent Las Vegas event that he would keep writing until God says stop. Perhaps that is why people still come to hear him sing, to feel the energy of someone who has never let the stage lights fade within his heart. From the impoverished north end of Detroit to the grandest stages of America, Smokey Robinson has completed a rare journey. Over 6 decades, he has been more than the voice of Motown. He has been its storyteller. Each chapter of his life reflects a different rhythm, youthful fire, conflicted middle age, and serene understanding in his later years. From Shop Around to A Quiet Storm, from the tracks of My Tears to Being With You, he turned human emotion into melody and melody into collective memory. Now at 85, Smokey still stands in the light as if time itself cannot stop him. What he has confessed about love, mistakes, and the power of forgiveness reveals not just the man behind the legend, but also reminds listeners that the greatest music always begins with honesty. Smokey Robinson does not need to seek immortality because he has lived long enough to prove that legacy does not belong to the past. It lives in every note he still sings. If you have ever listened to a Smokey Robinson song and felt something both familiar and new, that is his power, the ability to give emotion, a melody. Share this video if you believe music still has room for honesty and humanity. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to continue discovering the stories behind the legends.